They never admit it out loud, but the truth is this: they lost. The people who once bet on your downfall have nothing left to say. Their whispers turned into silence, their schemes into dust, and their energy into exhaustion. They tried every trick, every weapon, every underhanded move to break you, but the outcome is undeniable. Chosen one, it's over. The storm has passed, and you will never have to face that again. Look around. Notice the quiet. It's not the same quiet you felt in the middle of the battle, that heavy quiet where you questioned if you'd survive. This quiet feels different. It's the hush that follows after something has ended. The kind of silence that makes your enemies nervous because they realize they no longer hold any power over you. It unsettles them, watching you stand steady after everything they threw your way. And make no mistake, they are watching. They check from the shadows, scrolling, asking around, keeping tabs. They want to know how you're still here. They want to know how, after everything, you're not only standing but stronger than ever. It bothers them because they expected your story to end differently. They pictured you broken, invisible, forgotten. Instead, the opposite happened. You're still here, chosen one, and the cycle that once repeated itself endlessly has finally broken. Before I go further, let me pause to thank you. If you're here listening right now, it's because you're part of something bigger. This mission, this message, this collective voice of chosen ones around the world. If this speaks to you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and strengthen the chain. Every click, every comment, every share. It's how we keep this truth alive and make sure no chosen one feels alone in their journey. Now, back to what matters. The shift has already happened. The ending you prayed for, the release you waited on, the closure you thought would never come. It's here. That door slammed shut, and it won't open again. The universe has cleared your path, stamped the exit, and written a new chapter with your name on it. The people, the patterns, the pain, they can scream all they want, but none of it can drag you back into what you've outgrown. Do you feel it? That strange calm? It's not weakness, it's victory. You're standing in the aftermath of a war, and the battlefield looks nothing like it did before. There are no chains holding you down, no endless loop of the same hurt, playing again and again. The script has been rewritten, and you've been freed from the part they kept trying to trap you in. This is what your enemies can't stand, that they didn't get the ending they expected. They invested so much energy into keeping you stuck, yet here you are, stepping into something new. They're left with nothing but questions and regrets, while you carry the quiet strength of someone who has finally broken free. And here's the revelation: you will never have to go through that again. Not because life won't test you, but because that specific chapter is closed for good. It served its purpose. It taught you what you needed to know. It proved your resilience. It shaped your strength. And now it's finished. Done. Over. You don't have to relive it, repeat it, or re-experience it. The wait is gone, and the doors to the future are open. So stand tall, chosen one. Breathe in the silence. Feel the shift, because from this moment forward, your story moves differently. The worst is behind you, and the best is already on its way. Congratulations, it's done. And you'll never have to go through that again. And now, chosen ones, this is where we go deeper. You've made it through the hardest part, and the victory already belongs to you. But the real power is in understanding why it's finished, and why you'll never have to face that cycle again. This isn't just about closure, it's about clarity, and I promise, by the end of this message, you'll feel that shift inside of you. If you're truly a chosen one, you'll recognize the signs, you'll feel the pull, and you'll know deep down that this moment was meant for you. Before we continue, let me ask you to do one thing. Drop a comment below with the words, "It's done," if you're ready to leave the old season behind for good. That single action is more than engagement. It's a declaration, a reminder to yourself and to anyone watching that you're no longer tied to what once tried to break you. And as you do that, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected, because this is only the beginning of what's unfolding for the chosen ones. So take a breath, stand tall, and let's step into this together. Let's get started. Number 1. The chains that tried to break you are now rusted and dead. They thought they could keep you locked in the same cage forever, but the lock has snapped, the key is gone, and the cage itself has collapsed. What once held you can never hold you again. Let's be real, the enemy never wanted to defeat you just once. No, they wanted to program your life into a loop, a sick little merry-go-round of misery that you couldn't step off. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every setback. It wasn't random. It was strategy. They wanted you spinning in the same pain until you got dizzy and gave up. That was the plan. That was the cycle. But here's the gut-punch truth they don't want to hear. The cycle is dead. It expired the moment you stopped folding under it. And now they have nothing new to throw at you. You've already been through their best shots, their most brutal weapons. They hit you with everything they had, and you're still here. That means the system that once tormented you is broken. Have you ever asked yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Of course you have. That's how the enemy gets in your head. They made you think you were cursed, like you were destined to repeat the same pain with new faces. Different partner, same betrayal. Different job, same sabotage. Different circle, same knife in the back. That wasn't bad luck. That was design. Darkness doesn't create, it recycles. And the fact it kept recycling in your life was proof you were a threat worth trapping. But here's where the tables flipped. Cycles only work on the unhealed. Loops only repeat if you never catch on. Once you wake up and refuse to surrender, the pattern starts choking on its own repetition. And that's exactly what happened with you. You didn't just survive the furnace, you outlasted it. You drained the fire of its power by refusing to let it consume you. Think about it. How many times did they expect you to fold? How many nights did they assume you'd never get up again? The enemy had confidence in their own cycle, but they underestimated yours. They forgot that chosen ones have a different kind of endurance, the kind that doesn't collapse, even when it's bleeding, the kind that finds strength in the middle of exhaustion, the kind that turns suffering into fuel. That's why the cycle is finished. It didn't collapse because it wanted to. It collapsed because you starved it. You refused to keep feeding it with your fear, your hopelessness, your surrender. And now it's powerless. The chains that tried to hold you are rusted, broken, useless. Even if they tried to put them back on you, they wouldn't lock. They're dead. And the enemy, they're furious, because cycles are their favorite weapon. Why? Because they don't have to reinvent anything. They just take the same wound, the same trigger, and dress it up in a new disguise. It's cheap, it's lazy, but it works on most people. Not on you anymore. You've disarmed it. You've robbed them of their easy trick, and now they have to face a reality they hate. They can't use the same poison twice. Here's the part that will really sting for them. Survivors carry immunity. That's right. Once you've endured the worst, you can't be manipulated by the same game again. It's like a vaccine. Once your system has fought it, it knows the code. Your spirit has the blueprint. You see the red flags before they even wave. You smell the betrayal before it's even cooked up. You sense the sabotage before it touches your door. You're immune. And immunity is what terrifies your enemies, because it means the old tricks are useless. It means the very weapon that used to make you collapse is now powerless in your hands. They could throw the same storm at you tomorrow, and you'd walk through it dry. They could send the same betrayal, and you'd shrug it off. The same losses, and you'd rebuild without blinking. They hate that. They hate that what once destroyed you now doesn't even scratch you. So let's answer the question burning in your mind right now. Can it ever happen again? The answer is no, not like before. The contract is void. The cycle has expired. What tried to break you cannot repeat its grip, because its assignment has already been fulfilled. You drained it of its energy. You forced it to run its course until it had nothing left. And once a cycle runs out of fuel, it dies permanently. Understand this. You didn't just survive the storm, you shut down the system that produced it. You've not only outlasted the nightmare, you've exhausted the machinery that made it possible. That's why you'll never face that same darkness again. The system is broken, the gears are stripped, the engine is blown. It can't run. So let the enemy watch in silence. Let them chew on their failure. They built a cycle to bury you, but all it did was prove you were unshakable. And now, every time they see you smile, every time they hear your name, every time they realize you're still standing, it eats them alive. That's your victory. That's your immunity. That's your revenge. Chosen one, carry this truth with pride. The chains are rusted, the cycle is dead, and your enemies are left with nothing but regret. Congratulations, you'll never have to go through that again. Number 2, the contract of your pain has been shredded for good. They thought they had you locked in a lifelong lease with misery, but the papers have burned, the ink has vanished, and the deal no longer exists. What once claimed ownership over your peace has been evicted permanently. Let's get something straight. Pain was never designed to last forever. It pretends to be eternal. It makes you feel trapped. But the truth is this: every ounce of suffering comes with terms, a start date, an assignment, and an expiration. Even if you didn't see the fine print, it was there all along. And chosen one, the deadline has passed. The contract is expired. Think about it. Every hardship you endured had conditions. Every betrayal had limits. Every loss, every sleepless night, every crushing disappointment. None of them were open-ended. They had boundaries. But while you were living through it, it didn't feel that way. It felt endless. It felt permanent. It felt like life itself had been rewritten into one long nightmare. That's the lie pain whispers. This is forever. But forever was never on the table. Imagine this: a courtroom you couldn't see. Behind closed doors, suffering tried to present itself as your permanent sentence. It filed paperwork, stacked evidence, and argued its case. Every time you cried yourself to sleep, every time you whispered, "I can't take this anymore," it added more weight to its file. But here's the catch: it never had unlimited authority. The moment you absorbed the lessons, the moment you grew into a stronger, sharper, more unshakable version of yourself, the gavel came down. Case dismissed. The most dangerous lie pain tells is that it will never end. The most powerful truth you now carry is that it did. And that's why you feel different now. That strange weight lifting off your shoulders, that quiet shift you can't explain. That's the contract dissolving. That's your freedom being stamped and sealed. You didn't just outlast and the suffering. Yaudan sai, now besai. You outlived it. And because you did, the old contract no longer has the right to touch you again. Have you ever wondered, why did it last so long? Why didn't it end sooner? The answer is brutal but freeing. Some lessons can't be rushed. Strength isn't microwaved. Wisdom isn't instant. There were parts of you that had to be forged in the fire. And that process takes time. The pain lingered not because you were weak, but because the assignment wasn't finished yet. But once it was, once you carried the strength, once you wore the wisdom, the contract lost its grounds. Picture a landlord who rents out misery. They let it live in your house, invade your mind, sleep in your bed. But rent only lasts for a season, and when the clock runs out, eviction papers are served. That's what happened to you. Suffering overstayed its welcome, but it didn't own you. The lease ended. The locks were changed. The universe itself handed the enemy their walking papers and said, "You no longer have access here." And oh, how that enrages them, because pain was their weapon, their favorite control tactic. They believed it would weaken you until you collapsed. They wanted you to bow under it, to break under it, to give up before the expiration came. But you didn't. You endured. You crawled through nights that would have buried most people. You kept breathing when it felt easier to stop. And because you refused to collapse, you lived long enough to see the clause no one talks about. Suffering always ends. Your suffering didn't outlive you. You outlived it. Do you see the power in that? Pain wanted to be your executioner, but instead it became your trainer. It thought it was burying you, but it was building you. And now, because the contract is over, your enemies have no legal right to recycle the same destruction in your life again. The door is locked, the seal is broken, and what once slipped through cracks can no longer enter. Imagine trying to use an expired ticket at a gate. No matter how much you argue, the scanner rejects it. That's what the enemy faces now. They can wave old wounds in your face. They can try to drag you back to the past. But the system won't let it through. It's denied. It's void. It's finished. And here's the revelation you need to hold on to. Because the contract is dead, your future will not look like your past. Even if they wanted to replay the same suffering, they can't. The access is revoked. The keys are gone. The locks have been changed. You've already paid the cost, served the sentence, endured the trial. There is nothing left for suffering to claim from you. The chains that once held authority in your life now carry no weight. They are props with no power. So when your mind tries to trick you with fear, what if it happens again? What if I get hurt the same way? Remind yourself of this truth. It can't, not like before. That version of pain has been stripped of all rights to your life. You're not just free, you're immune. And immunity is priceless. It means the scars you carry are no longer open wounds. They've closed, they've hardened, they've turned into warnings for anyone who tries to repeat the same harm. It means you walk differently now. You see differently. You feel danger before it reaches you. You sense betrayal before it lands. That's the wisdom your suffering paid for, and it's permanent. Chosen one, let this sink in. You didn't just outlast the storm. You shut down its legal claim against you. You didn't just crawl out of a contract. You shredded it, burned it, and watched the ashes blow away. That's why you feel lighter. That's why you feel free. Because you are. The enemy can fume in silence. They can gnash their teeth, wondering how their favorite weapon lost its edge. But that's not your concern anymore. Their playbook is outdated. Their contract is void. Their authority is gone. The contract of your pain has expired permanently, and because of that, you will never have to face that same suffering again. Number 3, you paid the price that ended the curse. They thought your pain was just personal, but it was the invoice of generations, and you paid it in full. Chosen one, this is why your suffering felt heavier than anyone else's. Some of the weight you carried was never even yours. Families don't just pass down names and traditions, they pass down wounds, unhealed battles, and chains disguised as normal life. Poverty that clings like smoke, relationships that collapse like clockwork, illness that keeps repeating generation after generation. Someone has to carry it until it finally breaks. That someone was you. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I feel like I'm being punished for things I never did? That's because you were standing in as the breaker. You weren't just living your own story. You were the wall between past destruction and future freedom. The pain was multiplied because it wasn't only about you. It was the last collection of debts your bloodline had left unpaid. Generational chains are designed to repeat until someone strong enough decides to snap them in half. Imagine a relay race where every runner before you dropped the baton. It kept rolling forward, waiting for someone to finally pick it up and finish. That baton landed in your hands. That's why the betrayals, the breakdowns, the endless heaviness didn't make sense. You were running with more than your own weight. And here's the victory they can't take from you. You survived. You carried what others could not. You didn't collapse under it. And because of that, the cycle is permanently broken. The chains rusted. The curse lost its grip. The contract of generational pain has been stamped paid in full through you. So what happens now? Those who come after you will never taste the same bitterness. They will walk a clearer road because you walked the hard one first. You weren't just fighting for your own life. You were resetting an entire lineage. And that's why your enemies can't stand you. You ended something they thought would never end. Your suffering was not a punishment. It was the down payment on a future no one before you could afford. The debt is cleared, the curse is broken, and you, chosen one, are free. Number 4, you turned poison into power they can't use against you again. They tried to drown you in venom, but you drank it, turned it into fire, and now it burns in your favor. Chosen one, here's the truth. You didn't just endure pain, you transmuted it. That's why it cannot come back the same way again. Endurance alone would have left scars, weakness, and open wounds for the enemy to press on later. But what you did was something rare. You turned the poison meant to destroy you into fuel that no one can take away. Have you ever asked yourself, why didn't the suffering finish me off? Because you did more than survive. You rewired it. Every betrayal, every humiliation, every loss that was supposed to make you bitter only made you sharper. Instead of carrying rot in your soul, you burned it into wisdom. That's why the cycle broke. That's why you can't be fooled the same way twice. The fire that was supposed to consume you became the forge that built you. Imagine a blacksmith taking raw, broken metal and putting it through flames. It screams, it bends, it melts. But when it comes out, it's unbreakable. That's you. You walked through fire and came out forged. The enemy hates that because the very tools they used against you have been dismantled and reshaped into your armor. What once wounded you can't reach you anymore because you don't even exist on the same level. The old you, the vulnerable version, burned away in that furnace. The upgraded version is untouchable in the places where you once were weak. Look closer at your scars. They aren't reminders of defeat. They're signatures of authority. Sleepless nights gave you discernment. Loneliness carved depth into your soul. Tears cleared your vision. Even shame was melted down into a shield that blocks what once pierced you. Poison can't kill you if your system has already learned how to turn it into medicine. That's why the enemy is powerless now. Their old weapons are obsolete. They can't stab you with betrayal when you already learned to see it coming. They can't crush you with loss when you've already rebuilt stronger. They can't cage you with shame when you've already turned it into a sword. You didn't just survive. You rewrote the rules of the battlefield. And now everything that comes against you has to face the upgraded version of you, the one forged by fire, untouchable, unstoppable. Number 5. They fired their last bullet and you're still standing. They bet everything on your destruction, pulled the trigger on their final shot, and missed. Chosen one, that's why it felt like an all-out war, with no pause, no breath, no mercy. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't exaggeration, it was real. The enemy unleashed everything at once, every betrayal, every loss, every hidden trap, every strike against your mind and body. They were banking on the idea that if they poured it all out in one season, you'd collapse for good. That's why it was so intense. It was their last gamble. Have you ever asked yourself, why did it all come at me so heavy, so fast? Because evil doesn't have an endless arsenal. It recycles what works, and once a weapon fails, its power dissolves. So they stacked their sharpest weapons together, hoping you'd break under the weight. They didn't count on you surviving. They didn't expect you to crawl through hell and come out breathing, but you did. And that survival proves something they hate. The arsenal is empty. The fire that was supposed to bury you only revealed you. Imagine an army firing its last round of ammunition, convinced it will end the war, only to watch their enemy still standing. That's what happened with you. They threw their last bullet, their deadliest dart, their most suffocating strike. And you refused to die. That wasn't weakness, that was your immortality showing. And here's the revelation: because you survived their strongest attack, you no longer have to fear their weaker ones. If the worst couldn't take you down, nothing lesser will. Their playbook is finished. Their magazine is empty. Their so-called power has been proven fake. They spent their final shot trying to end you, but all they did was expose that you cannot be ended. What they planned as your burial turned into your unveiling. They exposed their own limits while you revealed your resilience. They showed they're out of weapons while you showed you're out of reach. That was their last bullet, their final strike, and you're still here, stronger, sharper, unstoppable. Number 6. You've climbed too high for their hands to touch you. They keep reaching for you, but their fingers only claw at air because you're no longer standing where they left you. Chosen one, survival didn't just make you stronger, it relocated you. It shifted you into a space where their reach, their tricks, their attacks no longer land. That's why life feels different now, even if you can't fully explain it. The same people may linger, the same traps may exist, but they can't wound you anymore. You've outgrown the battlefield where they once had power. Have you noticed how old temptations don't pull you in the same way? How insults bounce off you? How betrayals that once would have crushed you now barely scratch the surface? That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's elevation. Your survival moved you to a higher frequency, one they cannot tune into. Pain only thrives where weakness lives, and you've vacated that address. Imagine a radio station blasting static. When you were vulnerable, broken, unaware of your strength, you were tuned in. Every dart found you, every cycle repeated. But when you endured and survived, your frequency changed. You no longer broadcast on that channel. Now their words sound hollow, their tricks look obvious, their arrows miss because you're not even there anymore. Have you ever asked, why doesn't it sting the way it used to? It's because the version of you that could be hurt like that doesn't exist anymore. You're not invisible, you're untouchable. You're standing in a higher place, and they're still trapped below, shooting arrows into an empty sky. Survival didn't just keep you alive, it promoted you. This is why their power is gone. They're fighting ghosts, wrestling shadows, trying to provoke someone who no longer lives at their level. What they don't realize is this: survival elevated you to a dimension they cannot enter. They lost access, they lost the keys, they lost you. Chosen one, carry this truth with pride. You've climbed too high for their hands to touch you. Let them scratch, let them rage. All they're doing is exhausting themselves against the air. Your survival didn't just prove your strength. It permanently shifted you into victory's atmosphere. Number 7. Your spirit grew antibodies against their poison. They thought breaking you would leave you weak forever, but all they did was teach your soul how to fight back automatically. Chosen one, at the start, the trauma blindsided you. It struck the hidden cracks you didn't know existed. It ripped open weaknesses you didn't know you carried. That's why it felt unbearable, because you had no defense against it. But survival doesn't leave anyone the same. The moment you endured, your spirit recalibrated itself. What once pierced you now bounces off. What once slid in quietly now sets off alarms. You've built immunity. Have you noticed how quickly you can now sense danger? How betrayal feels obvious before the mask even slips? How lies sound hollow before they finish speaking? That's not paranoia. That's your inner immune system working. Every wound you suffered became a lesson, every scar a sensor, every night of agony a reprogramming. Trauma was the infection, but your survival became the cure. Imagine your body fighting off a deadly virus. The first strike almost kills you because you're unprepared, but once you recover, your body produces antibodies. The next time that same virus shows up, your system destroys it before it can even spread. That's your spirit now. What once crushed you can't even scratch you anymore. You might ask, but what if the same suffering comes back? It can't, not in the same form. You've already built resistance. You already recognize the patterns. Your soul rejects the toxins before they get near. That's why the enemy is furious. Their favorite weapons are predictable now. What once felt like surprise attacks are just recycled tricks you see coming a mile away. The trauma that once broke you has become the shield that now protects you. That's why you don't tolerate what you once excused. That's why you don't ignore signals you once brushed aside. Your spirit developed antibodies against betrayal, manipulation, and destruction, and that resistance is permanent. The enemy hates this more than anything. Before, they could blindside you. Now every move feels obvious, clumsy, predictable. Their arrows fall short because your spirit blocks them before they land. Your survival didn't just make you stronger, it gave you permanent immunity. Number 8. Their deadliest blow became the stamp of your authority. They swung to end you, missed, and in missing branded you forever with proof that you cannot be destroyed. Chosen one, survival is never silent. It leaves a mark, a seal that the unseen world cannot ignore. The very attacks meant to bury you became the proof that you are untouchable. That's why you will never be seen the same again. Darkness knows when it fails, and when it fails against someone like you, it leaves behind a twisted form of respect. Every trap, every betrayal, every close call stamped you with an invisible signature. This one cannot be claimed. Have you noticed how different life responds to you now? You carry quiet authority without even trying. The enemy can sense it. Their weapons fall short, not because they stopped aiming, but because the mark of your survival rejects them before they land. You didn't just endure, you were branded, and that branding cannot be erased. What should have been your coffin became your certificate. Imagine a soldier who returns from battle scarred but alive. Their uniform is torn, their body bruised, but that scar becomes their badge. People know instantly they've faced fire and lived. That's you. What once looked like the end became your eternal testimony. I am still here. You might ask, does this mean no challenges will come again? No, challenges will come, but none will ever hit you with the same force. The deadliest weapon already failed. The enemy's most vicious strike already missed. And once the worst fails, everything after feels smaller. Their final attempt became the permanent receipt of your immortality. This is why you walk differently now. You don't need to prove your strength. Your survival already screams it. You carry a seal that darkness recognizes instantly, and that seal says, untouchable. Chosen one, let it settle in your spirit. What was meant to kill you is now the very stamp of your authority. Their failure became your proof. Their last weapon became your eternal badge. And because of that seal, you will never again be owned, chained, or destroyed. Number 9. You survived the death sentence they wrote for you. They dug your grave, carved your name, and wrote the ending, but you stood up and walked out, making their prophecy a lie. Chosen one, this is more than survival. This is contradiction. You lived through what was designed to erase you. The wounds you carried should have left you shattered for life. The betrayals should have killed your trust forever. The weight of those losses should have crushed your will to keep moving. By every rule of logic, you weren't supposed to get up again. But here you are, breathing, building, rising. Have you ever wondered, why do people look at me differently now? It's because your very existence mocks their expectations. You became the evidence that their predictions, their whispers, their bets on your downfall were worthless. You were supposed to be finished, but you turned that impossibility into proof that you cannot be finished. Your survival is the contradiction that keeps them awake at night. Imagine a building leveled by an explosion, dust everywhere, nothing left standing, and then, out of the rubble, one figure walks out untouched. That's you. They threw destruction layered, relentless, back to back, certain it would silence you forever. Instead, it branded you as untouchable. They thought you were weak, but your endurance rewrote the narrative. They thought your story ended at collapse, but your spirit had chapters they could never see. Even the enemy underestimated you, believing impossible was enough to end you. They failed. You turned impossible into undeniable proof. What should have buried you became the receipt of your immortality. Now your presence alone is disruptive. It unsettles people because by all accounts, you're not supposed to be here, not supposed to be walking this tall after everything. That's why you carry a quiet authority. You're not ordinary, you're the contradiction. You're the one who lived through the impossible and came out unerasable. And here's the revelation. The darkness that once tried to bury you can never bury you again. They already played their strongest card. They already showed their sharpest weapon. They failed. And because they failed, you are now out of reach forever. Chosen one, your survival is more than breath. It's defiance. It's victory. It's the undeniable stamp that you are untouchable. Number 10. The universe slammed the gavel on your case. They thought your suffering would last forever, but the highest court stamped the file closed, and no force alive can reopen it. Chosen one, your story wasn't ignored. Every betrayal, every injustice, every night of tears, it was recorded. The universe doesn't lose track of pain. It documents, it weighs, it balances. That's why it felt like your suffering dragged on longer than it should. The record was being completed. The evidence of what you endured had to be undeniable. And once it was, the ruling came down. Case closed permanently. Have you ever wondered, why did it go on for so long? Because endurance had to be proven. Strength had to be revealed. Your scars became exhibits in a trial you didn't even know was happening. But once the record was full, the universe declared the sentence finished. Suffering always comes with an expiration date, but freedom lasts forever. Unlike corrupt human systems where cases can be reopened or delayed, universal law doesn't bend. The gavel fell, the chains snapped, the ruling is irreversible. That's why you will never repeat that same season again. The permission once granted for destruction has been revoked. The enemy can scream, claw, and argue, but their evidence is inadmissible. Imagine a thick case file stamped in bold red ink, closed, do not reopen. That's your life now. What once had legal standing has been stripped of authority. What once stalked you can no longer enter. The verdict is final. The ruling of the universe is the only verdict that matters, and it says you're free. So when fear whispers, "What if it happens again?" remind yourself, it can't. The highest authority has already decided. No loophole exists. No appeal can overturn it. You're not walking in luck. You're walking in freedom, secured by verdict. Chosen one, your survival isn't just testimony, it's evidence. Your very existence stands as proof that the universe defends its strongest. You're not just free, you're vindicated. And because the ruling came from above all powers, you can step boldly into the future knowing the truth. That season is over forever. Number 11. You didn't just pass the test, you were crowned through fire. Exams end with grades, initiations end with crowns, and yours was forged in flames. Chosen one, what you went through wasn't a random storm. It wasn't just bad luck or a cruel string of misfortunes. It was initiation, the kind of passage reserved only for those strong enough to survive it. Tests measure ability, but initiations change identity. That's why your suffering felt so brutal, so personal, so consuming. You weren't being measured. You were being remade. Have you ever asked, why did my pain feel so targeted, so precise? Because you weren't walking through ordinary pressure. You were being stripped down to the raw core of who you are, so that every weakness could be reforged into power. Initiation never coddles. It burns illusions. It tears away shallow comforts. It throws you into fire until endurance hardens into authority. That's what happened to you. The fire that nearly destroyed you was actually the coronation fire. Imagine a sword being hammered on an anvil. The heat isn't punishment, it's transformation. That's you. Every sleepless night, every betrayal, every breakdown was a strike of the hammer, shaping you into something indestructible. And here's the revelation. No one is initiated twice. The furnace you walked through was a one-time price of entry. You'll never have to go back because you already crossed the threshold. You didn't just endure a season. You stepped into a higher realm where ordinary strength cannot go. Now you see differently. You discern differently. You move with quiet authority because you've paid the toll no one else was willing to pay. Your scars are not wounds anymore. They're badges, proof that you've earned access others can only dream of. You weren't tested to prove something. You were initiated to become something. And because you've become it, you cannot be unmade. Pain didn't just pass over you, it crowned you. Authority doesn't return to ashes. You've crossed the line, chosen one, and there's no going back. You are not who you were before the fire. You are the crowned version, branded, elevated, untouchable. Number 12. They bankrupted themselves trying to bury you. They spent everything they had on your destruction, and now they're broke, bitter, and empty-handed. Chosen one, this is why their attacks don't sting anymore. It's not because they suddenly grew kind. It's because they're depleted. Every plot, every scheme, every word spoken against you drained them of their own life force. Darkness never funds its soldiers for free. It demands a trade. And while they thought they were trading your peace for their power, they were actually bankrupting themselves, trying to destroy someone who could not be destroyed. Have you ever wondered, why does it feel like their attacks don't carry the same weight anymore? It's because survival drained them, not you. For years, they invested time, energy, and obsession into your downfall. They strategized, collaborated, twisted themselves into knots trying to erase you, but every time you endured, their resources bled out further. Survival didn't just preserve you, it dismantled them. Every scheme they launched was a loan they could never repay. Imagine an enemy army pouring all its resources into one final battle, convinced it would finish you. When the smoke clears, you're still standing, and they're left starving, weaponless, out of breath. That's exactly what happened. You kept rising, and in doing so, you stripped them of the very power they thought they had. Now they face a brutal truth. They can't repeat what they did. They don't have the stamina. Their alliances fractured under the weight of failure. Their words lost their venom. Their tricks look old, predictable, laughable. They are spiritually bankrupt, running on fumes, gnawing on their own bitterness, because there's nothing left to fuel another war. Your survival became their starvation. That's why the war is over. Not because they stopped hating you, but because they have nothing left to use. They've burned through their arsenal, drained their strength, wasted their time, and now they stand weakened, while you stand stronger than ever. Chosen one, let it sink in. You didn't just outlast your enemies, you exhausted them. You're still standing, and they're spent. That is your victory. Number 13. Your survival became their lifelong nightmare. They don't just remember trying to bury you, they remember failing, and that memory gnaws at them like rust on their soul. Chosen one, your enemies are not haunted by what they did. They're haunted by the outcome. They replay the nights they schemed, the traps they built, the certainty they carried that this time you wouldn't get up. They thought they had your ending written, but their confidence has now been replaced with humiliation, the kind that never lets go. Have you ever wondered, do they still think about me? The answer is yes, not with pride, but with torment. The image of you rising is burned into their minds like a scar that won't heal. Every time your name is mentioned, every time your presence surfaces, they relive their own failure. Nothing haunts a coward more than the sight of the one they couldn't kill, still standing tall. Imagine a hunter who empties every bullet into the dark, certain they've hit their target, only to see their prey walking free at sunrise. That's your enemies now. The memory of your resilience stalks them in silence, in dreams, in conversations they can't even finish. They carry the humiliation of knowing their best wasn't enough. This is why they hesitate now. On the surface, they may still talk boldly, but beneath it, fear grips them. Fear of wasting more time. Fear of confirming again what they already know, that you cannot be broken. Even if they dared to try, the memory of their last defeat would freeze them before the first move. That memory is its own punishment. Your survival is louder than any revenge you could ever plot. You don't need to chase them or retaliate. Their own minds are your greatest ally. Every day they live in the shadow of their failure. While you've moved forward, healed and grown, they're trapped in replay mode, shackled by the reminder that their greatest efforts weren't enough. That is their cage now. And here's the truth they can never escape. The memory of your survival is their lifelong nightmare, one they'll never wake up from. Number 14. You're living in the spoils of the war they lost. They thought survival would leave you broken, but now you're walking in the aftermath, crowned by the very fire that tried to erase you. Chosen one, this is the part that feels almost unreal. For so long, survival was your constant rhythm, patching yourself up, bracing for the next strike, living in battle mode. But that season is over. The battlefield is behind you. The cycle of endless recovery has ended, and you've crossed into something far greater: revelation. Have you noticed the shift? The scars that once bled now stand as marks of authority. The weight you once dragged is now the very evidence that you were forged, not finished. You were never chosen just to endure. You were chosen to demonstrate. The crushing and the breaking weren't your undoing. They were your initiation into becoming untouchable. Recovery is temporary. Revelation is eternal. Imagine a soldier returning from war. They don't crawl back into the same trenches. They don't live in constant firefight. Their survival earns them honor, respect, and new assignments. That's you now. The furnace already did its work. The fire can't touch you the same way again because you've been crowned by it. You might ask, will I ever face that same season again? The answer is no. That battle was never designed to be your permanent address. It was a passage, and you passed through it. The crown you now carry isn't gold. It's authority. It's wisdom earned in the flames. It's resilience carved into your very being. No classroom could have given it. No enemy can take it. What was supposed to bury you became the soil of your coronation. And now, in the aftermath, your life itself is proof. Proof that the fire failed. Proof that destruction became your unveiling. Every step forward is no longer recovery. It's demonstration. The world will see the strength, the radiance, the power of someone who walked out of fire crowned instead of crushed. And chosen one, understand this: you are no longer circling old battlefields. You are living in the spoils of the war they lost. This isn't the aftermath of defeat. This is the aftermath of victory, permanent,